Hello, William here again. Welcome back to my channel and to this week's project video. Now, back in December 2018 I turned a pedestal bowl that was inspired by a design by Pat Carroll. Now, Pat published an extensive article about this bowl and how to go about crafting it in the March issue of Woodturning magazine. Now, the outcome of the project was very good, and I was very impressed, especially with the aesthetics of the final product. And so were a lot of other people, because it was very popular on both YouTube and on social media. Now, I'm going to use Pat's design again this week, but for a half-size project with some additional differences. Firstly, the bowl I'm rather hoping is going to be a hybrid, that is with some epoxy resin insert. Now, the second difference is I'm not going to use spalted beech, I'm going to colour it, so I'm going to use some bland maple blanks for this project. The colour scheme I have in mind is going to be based again on the beautiful gold and blue colours of Tutankhamun's death mask. Now, in the past I've seen many projects where wooden dowels are placed in a circular fashion in blanks to produce a kind of a fluting effect on the outside of the bowl. More recently I've seen several people drill holes and fill them full of epoxy resin to produce some either transparent or translucent flutes in the outside of the bowl. Now, in my design I want some translucent gold panels in the side of the bowl to complement the blue colour, or the intended blue colour of the outside. So I'm going to fill the holes with Alumilite epoxy resin with some gold mica powder in it. So the first job then, to get the blank mounted on a faceplate and get it trued up. Now, to drill the holes I'm going to use my electric drill mounted in my Paul Howard Fluting Jig with a Forstner bit. Now, I'm going to use the spreadsheet that I designed for use with my Paul Howard Fluting Jig to help me work out the size of the bit and the number of iterations. Now, for the radius that we have to play with, the spreadsheet is suggesting a bit size of 22mm and 14 iterations. Now, 14 iterations is handy because it's the number of guide holes on the inside of the index plate. So here I'm setting up my improvised base for the router jig. So, having got the router jig successfully set up, I now need to calculate the depth of the cut. Now, I don't want to cut all the way through the blank in order I can fill it up with resin. Here I'm adjusting the jig so that the centre point of the Forstner bit is on the centre line of the piece. The final part of the setup is to screw in place two guide rails that focus the Forstner bit on the 92.5mm radius. Now, you may notice on the first cut there a slight rocking motion on the router jig because I failed to have my hand on the base of the jig. This I corrected in all the subsequent drilling operations. Okay, about 20 minutes later and the 14 iterations are completed. Now moving on to the base of the pedestal bowl, I want a corresponding number of holes drilled in the base, also to fill with resin, and my spreadsheet is suggesting to me that with a small radius of 55 millimeters, 14 iterations of a 16mm bit will do the trick. Now before I drill holes in the base, I'm just going to put a recess in this finish off the base and spin it round in the O'Donnell jaws. So moving on to the resin, I'm going to use Alumilite from the House of Resin, and the first thing to do is to calculate how much we need. Using the formula for a cylinder, pi times the radius squared times the height, we calculate we need a 0.425 of a litre. So in fact I'm going to mix up half a litre just to make sure I'm not short. Now I'm going to colour the resin by adding some Caster's Choice gold mica powder, also from the House of Resin. Okay, I'll now leave this in the pressure pot for the next 2 or 3 days while I get on with some other projects. Okay, so just a quick progress report on the state of the casting. Now the casting is good, it's cured very well, it's been 36 hours No, it's been 48 hours since I cast it. Now, as you can see from the picture here, there has been, in some places, quite a considerable drop in the level of resin. Now, having looked again at Doug Moore's comments when he's done similar things in the past, he's attributed this to the resin soaking into the wood. Now, the resin doesn't shrink very much, so there can be no other explanation. In one way, that's not a problem, because actually the level doesn't matter, because it's going to be, the top and bottom are going to be turned away. However, since I was planning to stain this with either intrinsic colour stains or some spirit stain, that could be a problem, because of course if the wood is contaminated with the resin, it won't take the stain, and I'll have to improvise, possibly by using some acrylic paint. Okay, having mounted the piece back on the lathe, we need to start off by squaring it off with a bowl gouge. However, I'll very soon revert to my Glenteagle carbide cutter, because this works very well with resin. I find that holding the carbide tool at about 15 degrees gives the best cut on resin. Having gone through the grits from 180 to 400, I'm now going to clean it using the airline and some methylated spirits or denatured alcohol. Now moving on to the colouring, for the base colour I'm going to use Chestnut Spirit Royal Blue. Now you'll notice that I'm applying the spirit stain in a very slapdash way. That's because I intend to cut it back in anticipation of quite a blotchy finish caused by the end grain, side grain and the ingress of resin into the wood. Okay, quick update. Having bonded the pedestal and the bowl together and left it overnight, so time to think what I'm going to do about the colour. So what I've decided to do is to rub it back, make it look a bit shabby, and possibly add some liming wax and or some gold gilt to the rims and see what happens. So here I'm using a combination of sanding techniques with 400 grit paper to remove as much as the blue stain as necessary to produce some kind of uniform appearance. After cleaning the piece thoroughly with denatured alcohol or methylated spirits, I applied several coats of pre-thinned sanding sealer, denibbing between each coat. Thereafter, I threw caution completely to the wind and applied Yorkshire grit and Yorkshire grit microfine, which were inevitably going to further reduce the depth of colour. Venturing further into the unknown, I decided to add a little bit of liming wax here and there to increase that shabby look. Okay, in conclusion then, I think I'm quite happy with this actually. Is it what I expected? No, not really. I expected a brighter blue from the colours I used, but I quite like this worn, not new or even shabby look. I think it's quite pleasing to the eye. Okay, things I might have done differently. Given that the resin does appear to impregnate in the wood, at least to some level, it's probably due to ingress to a certain extent, and probably the pressure in the pressure pot being another reason, replacing the air in the wood. I'm not sure of the reasons. I might have considered adding a bit more liming wax in the nooks and crannies around the beading round here to add for the effect. I think that may have worked as well. But all in all, not the easiest project I've ever undertaken, but by no means the most disappointing. I enjoyed turning this. I'm happy with the outcome, and thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you again next week.